Welcome to the SPE Podcast, powered by the Society of Petroleum Engineers. You're listening to SPE Live, Synergizing Innovation and Collaboration, Transforming Energy for a Sustainable Future. The audio from this episode was previously recorded on July 28, 2025.
Welcome to this SPE Live, Synergizing Innovation and Collaboration, Transforming Energy for a Sustainable Future. My name is George Koperna. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Advanced Resources International, and I will be your moderator today. Before we begin, I'd like to invite you to the SPE Energy Transition Symposium, or ETS, in Sugar Land, Texas, from September 8th to 10th. In this symposium, professionals will come together from multiple disciplines across the energy sector to offer a comprehensive platform for learning, networking, and collaboration. Today's SPE Live will last 30 minutes. We encourage you to ask questions in the chat during the program. It's now my pleasure to introduce our guest. Dr. Maria Angela Capello is the president of Red Tree Consulting, LLC, and a leader in the energy sector, specializing in sustainability and geosciences. She has held roles at Kuwait Oil Company, Halliburton, and PDVSA. Honored with the Star of Italy knighthood, her work is endorsed by UNESCO, who published her report, Geoscience in Action. Dr. Capello is a member of the National Science Foundation Advisory Council, AGI Board of Directors Ambassador, and an honorary member of SPE. She received the American Geophysical Union's Lifetime Achievement Award for Diversity and Inclusion. She holds a PhD in Earth and Environmental Sciences from the University of Plymouth and a master's in geophysics from the Colorado School of Mines. Maria, welcome to this SPE Live.
Very good day to all.
Maria, or Mac informally, as you have your little moniker up. Good to have you this morning. Looking forward to the conversation. Let's start a little bit broadly and kind of then narrow down. How has your definition of energy transition evolved over the past decade? And what misconceptions do you think prevail in the society at large?
I think that this is a fantastic question to set the grounds, because for me, energy transition, or better, energy expansion, is just not a binary discussion about fossils versus renewables or tradition versus innovation, but it's, more about a change in mindsets and planning. I think that we need to embrace this kind of systems or systematic approach where you are able to instill behavioral change, policy reform, and also cross-sector collaboration. Because it's not about how we reimagine how we produce, distribute, and consume energy, but especially how do we, I would say, something bold, but I will say it. We need to transfer the responsibility from producers to consumers. And I will repeat that. We need to transfer that responsibility to the choices that as consumers we have, because it's just not a one-way dialogue. Energy expansion or energy transition is exactly about sustainability choices, where we have the power of what to choose, and also the policies that we put in place as a society, right? So it is the dilemma between or among scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. I will stop here.
No, thank you. And I think that sets the playing field for the rest of our conversation. And looking at, we're both members of SPE, so let's look at oil and gas. And it's really in a state of duality. It's balancing performance and cost reductions with increasing pressure to decarbonize. While many companies have made net zero pledges and are investing in low carbon technologies, the pace of change has been uneven. Geopolitical volatility, energy security concerns, and fluctuating demand have complicated the transition narrative. Maria, what are your thoughts about the feasibility of a lower carbon future in the planned timeline?
Well, you have added that tail to your question that is in the planet timeline. So that makes your question a difficult one, because what is my perspective about the feasibility of a low carbon future? My perspective is that it is feasible. Now, you're asking in the plan timeline, and every day I have to review how are we advancing in these, zero pledges and net zero targets, and we are not yet there. So the biggest challenge is not that we don't have the technology. We have the technology to do that. We have the willingness to do that. But maybe the problem here, in my opinion, of course, is cultural. Is, as a geoscientist, from the beginning, we are trained to have this perspective of the planet as a system, a holistic view on the planet. And we are very well aware that all resources are finite. All resources have a limit, including the talent resource, right? So all resources are very limited to the way that we implement them. So in the case of energy, it's a matter of stewardship, protection, okay, of what are strategic resources. So we are not distributing those equally in all regions, in the north, in the south latitudes, okay? So the change in perspective for me is foundational, to recognize that the oil and gas are critical, are strategic resources. And that means that when we will align our business models with geohazards and climate change, and especially environmental protection, okay, the net zero and the low carbon futures will be a reality within that framework that you asked me about, okay? Within that framework. Thank you for the question. That I think that is a very critical element.
Well, hydrogen is also a key piece of this whole puzzle, and it holds promise. It's been bandied about for decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors particularly, but scaling it requires overcoming hurdles in production, storage, transport, and regulation. Green hydrogen remains expensive, and infrastructure, the pipelines, the refueling stations, and the electrolysis capacity is still nascent. Is hydrogen an option in the U.S.?
Well, first of all, George, we know I am not an expert in hydrogen, that's for sure. So my take on hydrogen is what I can learn and inform myself through, the news that comes, to us, to all of us. So what I can see is that hydrogen seems to be a bridge. Let's call it a bridge to that future that we aspire to have. And the issue here is that we are still building that bridge. So hydrogen seems to be a valid option in the US. When you read that, the strategic targets placed about hydrogen are there and are very clear. 10 million metric tons of clean hydrogen annually by 2030, and even better, 50 million metric tons by 2050. So I am looking at, the growing and a momentum here in the US. I am based in Houston, so the news come, on a daily basis about energy. And we are looking at these tax incentives and these hydrogen hubs. I see companies fully dedicated to hydrogen, right? So again, I'm not an expert in hydrogen, but I do think it is a good bridge towards the implementation of new options for energy, especially in the US. But the problem here is that we need to expand that. Not the problem, the opportunity is that we need to expand that kind of vision of hydrogen into the future. So I would not at all be surprised if hydrogen becomes to be, the preferred pathway, and it's not anymore a bridge, but the main highway that can take us to a good and feasible decarbonization into the short future.
There are no challenges, only opportunities, right, Mac?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
looking back at the oil and gas portfolio, there's legacy oil and gas infrastructure that can be repurposed for carbon storage, hydrogen transport, or even geothermal energy. The challenge lies in regulatory adaptation, risk management, and ensuring that retrofitting doesn't perpetuate emissions or delay innovation. What are the most promising ways to repurpose oil and gas systems for a lower carbon future?
Well, you know, George, that when you asked me this, I was thinking what a good way for me to insert something which is about the SPE management, asset management technical section. I am the past chair of the asset management technical section, and just yesterday we finalized our paper part 2 about the technical skills in management. And one of them is asset integrity, which is very much related to this kind of transition that, or opportunity, again, as you very well said, George, opportunity about using what we already have to repurpose those facilities and those infrastructure we already have into the future. For example, with the right vision and the right technology to transform those, we can use our pipelines to carry hydrogen. Okay. We, of course, one of the things that also geoscientists work a lot is in assessing the feasibility of using depleted reservoirs to be able to storage CO2. And that is something that involves the geoscientists in many ways, because also we have to test the capacity, the strength, the characteristics of the cap rock to contain that CO2 in place, right? And ultimately, another example I can give you is that we can repurpose our platforms offshore to perhaps become those, host platforms for the offshore wind energy. So can we repurpose what we have? Yes. The ultimate goal for us in energy is to provide electricity, to provide energy in many ways. And all what we have needs to be repurposed. Again, what we have is a finite elements of resources, but hopefully wind, solar, and other kind of sources for energy may last us very, very long in our human scale. Let's remember our human scale in time is very different from geologic scale. And what we ultimately are pursuing is the well-being of society. And the energy sector is critical, is, substantially strategic for that. Thank you, George.
And you make a tremendous point regarding legacy infrastructure systems and legacy assets for that matter, and the possibility of transitioning their utility, particularly at the end of their life, right? Mm-hmm. There's also a tremendous knowledge base in our industry. How can we leverage this legacy brain power to energize new markets?
In the legacy, we can energize this by making sure that those countries, for example, with mono producing economic profiles, can expand what they already have to include these different segments of energy. And maybe that also have to include the legal frameworks, the policy making, and again, the cultural and technological change of perspectives to expand our offering with the energy transition or energy expansion. We need to start calling this energy expansion. I don't know if that answered your question, George.
No, thank you. And speaking of questions, if you have a question, please put it in chat for Maria. She's ready to answer the hard questions. I'll do the easy ones, Maria.
Okay.
Well, continuing our prepared questions, I mean, all of this is great, but we also need the overlay of policy and regulation. And policy in itself can both be a lever and a calibration tool. Clear, consistent regulation helps align diverse players like industry, investors, and communities toward a shared direction. What can we expect or aspire to for an effective energy transition in terms of policy?
Policy, I would say policy is probably a calibration tool, a lever, a propeller, And maybe this is the right moment for me to tell you that, yes, I am a geoscientist. But let me use an example that may be useful here. I am also, let's say, a musician, a pianist in particular. And when I want to perfection a piece, I have to use the metronome, the instrument that counts the time, the tempo. We musicians call it the tempo, which is the rhythm, the speed with which you play any instrument, okay? So maybe policy can be compared directly with a metronome, because it says the tempo, it says, the way with which stakeholders collaborate, and especially the time where and the how you want to implement progress. So generally, if you change policy in a very short time frame, right, the trust fades away, and the movement towards those policies could be jeopardized. So I think that policy is generally that kind of indispensable tool that we have to reach the global goals. And it must be, expanded globally towards the same purpose. So I am aspirational about my wishes in policy. Yes, I have this aspiration that I would hope that policy everywhere encourages partnerships, encourages entrepreneurship, and the participation of communities around the globe. Because in many ways, I think that perhaps to reach the very major goals of energy, justice, or perhaps just transition, okay, in the sense of inclusion and partnering collaboration, we need to have also not only the major companies, but also everyone in our communities collaborating and participating in this energy transition, in this energy expansion. And to facilitate that, we need policy.
Excellent. Thank you. And you've touched on this a lot. We were kind of, in a lot of ways, given the title energy transition by others. It wasn't something that our industry put forth and called it thusly. And so we're left with using this terminology to relate to the public at large, because that's what they understand in some ways. But let's latch on to the thought of energy expansion. And you've touched on it, and I think it's probably maybe even a better phrase as energy transition in that regard for a moment. How do you think we convey the importance of the hydrocarbon industry to underpin this expansion and maintain that social license to operate?
Well, most probably, I think that we can leverage on what we already have. I think that we are reliable sources of well-being by providing energy at a global scale. So if we need to change that, and to expand the energy, who is the sector that has the capacity, the talent, the skills, the technology to go for energy expansion? It is exactly the oil and gas. I am very proud to have been formed, shaped, and trained in the oil and gas sector. What I think that perhaps we don't have is a good narrative to approach society and to let everyone know that the ultimate goal that we need to have as an energy worker, as an energy sector, is the well-being of society where we all participate. Nobody ever created an agenda where we were going to produce oil and gas to produce emissions. No, that was just the way the energy sector has evolved and started with oil and gas. And before oil and gas, you remember, coal. So now we are going towards another kind of energy, which is cleaner. And we are learning and we are implementing cleaner ways to use oil and gas. So it is exactly our sector who will push and expand energy for society. And this is why I am always so adamant about the communication, because we sell well-being. We don't necessarily sell oil on one part or hydrogen on the other or wind energy or solar energy. On the contrary, the ultimate thing that we sell, that we deliver, that we distribute, that we produce is well-being. And this is something that needs to percolate what we do. I am passionate about this, George.
No, that's great. And it shows through, Maria. Thank you.
Okay.
And again, if there's questions, please put them in chat. We're about 2/3 through our time already, Mac. And so what we really want to do is begin. We've touched on legacy infrastructure and brain power. We've touched on hydrocarbon infrastructure, the role oil and gas can play. And I know that as we've been planning this meeting, there's also been the role of sustainability and diversity. And what I'd like to do is allow you to have a little bit of a runway to talk about the importance of those things in this energy transformation and how it's not just any technical thing. There's other things that have to go along with this. And I know you're passionate about these topics as well.
Yes, and I welcome your question. And I would like to say that there are some elements in what we do that still need to be advanced. One of them is the participation of some underrepresented groups. And underrepresented groups are many in every sector, but I would like to highlight the participation of women in energy, and that is a systematic gap that we have, and is a legacy that we receive from having few girls that like to pursue STEM careers. So I think that we need to encourage even more what we are doing for including women in the energy sector, because that diversity brings innovation, and the collaboration of different perspectives brings better solutions. So I have worked hard in promoting the self-empowerment of women. I don't think that they need to be empowered by anyone. And I am always saying this, there is nothing wrong with women. And we keep giving workshops to women, training to women, and, trying to make of them different professionals. The problem is with the way we are managing, in the sense that there is something in the system, in the culture, in the upbringing of girls into STEM and then into STEM careers that we need to fix. And I am the co-chair of the UNESC Women in Resource Management, and we are very close to issue some guidelines about the inclusion of gender equity strategies and human rights strategies as well in the major frameworks of the United Nations FC, UNFC, and the UNRMS, which we know very well in the SPE. As using that, we also created the UN PRMS, which is the system with which we evaluate and quantify the reserves that we have. So we are creating that document, and hopefully that will also help all kinds of companies to implement strategies to enhance the participation of women.
And that's been what I'll call a major platform, is we began to sit through our weekly calls, and sometimes thrice weekly calls, it feels like, to see our faces bright and shiny in the morning talking about SPE ETS. And how has that shown through, and how this meeting's been programmed?
Well, the ETS, which is the Energy Transition Symposium for 2025, is coming along very nicely, and we will have a rich offering about all segments of energy, particularly those that are new to the narrative of energy. And I would like to highlight the role of my co-chair, engineer Caroline Huet. She is one of the leaders at Oxy here in Houston. And what we will offer is a convergence of minds across disciplines, across sectors, generations. We have shaped and put together panels to offer these conversations with leaders in every sector of energy, okay? Hydrogen, solar, wind, even the financial aspects. How do you fuel, investors into these new initiatives in nuclear and other topics? And the idea is to offer a very open dialogue, and also a very energetic dialogue with different points of view. So we have shaped with an intentional design panels and technical sections that I suspect you will love, because the best that ETS has to offer is that kind of platform where you offer the opportunity not only to learn, but also to ask critical and difficult questions.
Well, thank you. And I think, we've worked really hard. I'm a director for the ETS, and, riding on the coattails, Mac, of you and Carolyn, as you guys program this meeting. And I think that's really shown through in the diversity of the panels, the diversity of the speakers in the keynotes. And, we really want to open this up and bring in those conversations. And I think that before we close out, I think we have one more question that we'd like to ask. And that is, where do we go from here, Mac? We're going to have a platform for having this conversation. And if you were to have a crystal ball and you looked at energy transformation, where do you see us 5, 10, 15 years down the road?
Well, I see, first of all, I don't have a crystal ball, George. Nobody has. So that is unfair from your side, because it's a very difficult question. But what I can see is a balance of all the sources of energy, and hopefully the opportunity for countries that have a low income or a low GDP, a very scarce opportunity to have an economic diversity, to be part of that table where the big conversations take place, and that they can come out of poverty by leveraging on their own energy sector that hopefully will be enhanced by the learnings of the advanced countries in energy transition. So I would like not to end my words without saying that part of that crystal ball tells me we're going to talk about energy, not energy expansion, not energy transition, not energy addition. We're going to be talking about energy. And if we are lucky enough, we are going to be talking about well-being, how to measure well-being.
And fantastic way to conclude. And Mac, your passion shows through. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I really appreciate the time this morning. Let me close by inviting everyone to come to Sugar Land, Texas on September 8th to 10 this year for the Society of Petroleum Engineers Energy Transition Symposium. The greater Houston area is going to be the perfect host for these conversations. You can see the QR code here. Maria has done an excellent job of telling you all about the meeting, and we hope to see you there to continue that conversation. So please come, join us. We look forward to seeing you there. On behalf of MAC, I'd like to thank you for all the questions, the comments, and for taking time out of your busy day to join us for a very important topic. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the SPE Live podcast. For more content, visit the SPE Energy Stream, the industry's digital pulse, at streaming.spe.org. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to subscribe and review. Join us next time on the SPE Live podcast.